Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Cluecon Weekly. Joining us this week is Jöran Vinzens, software developer at Sipgate. Jöran has been at Sipgate for a long time, and I'm super curious to hear about his experience. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Would you like to give a quick introduction about yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Jöran Vinzens. I'm from Germany. I work at Sipgate for nearly 11 years, 11 something years now. I'm in the telco business for far too long, 20 plus years now. I started with old PSEN phones and testing first SIP phones to the Asterisk back in 2005. And from there, I made my way from just testing telephones and analyzing SIP stuff to software developer. What I am now at Sipgate. And at the moment, we are trying to enable every developer, software developer at Sipgate, doing telco stuff without telco knowledge. And this is a challenge. That's what I'm basically doing right now.
Oh, nice. So, Sipgate has a long and interesting history. When I was looking up some topics for today, I discovered. I mean, it's been around for a long while. So I'm especially interested about two things. One, your retail project, which is kind of a no code, low code solution, I think. And
Yeah, that's
well,
true.
it's always interesting. So, as a application engineer, I've always been a developer, but I always done application level, so stuff like actually build call centers and stuff like that. I'm very curious about the mobile part of your work because to me, it's always. I mean, I don't come from telecoms engineering. I'm a pure computer engineer, so never really went into that space, and it really sounds interesting. But let's start from retail. What is retail?
Retail is abbreviation, stands for resilient telephony. And I think every one of you knows what it's like to get introduced to telco stuff. So it's overwhelming in the first, and you have a very steep learning curve at the beginning, and you have to learn lots of stuff, which is just for telco stuff. So there are legal things, there are some RFC things you have to know. There are components like free switch, like Asus, like Commcon, stuff like that you have to know in order to get a simple call from A to B. And this is a nightmare, to be honest. And I'm doing this now for 20 plus years, as I said. And this is not what we can push to every developer out there. So the normal developers knows how to handle APIs, how to code, how to do stuff, and basically programming work and handle database connections, some stuff like that. But if I request some developer to learn just for one program they write how to do telco stuff, they call me crazy. And that for sure is correct. So we try to make a basis um, where every developers can connect to an API, which is easy. You still have to know something about telco, but it's like a web API or some other API you have to connect. Or if you want to do some database stuff, you have to learn how a database API works in essence. So this is the same entry level we like to have in telco. And so we took the Asterisk with ARI, and on top of that, we built up our stack we call Retail Resilient Telephony. And there we implemented an internal telephony API, you can say so. So we call it ITI, Internal Telephony Interface, where you have basically to set up a simple call, you have to have 3 REST calls, one to call, the other phone, one to answer the phone, and one to clear the call at the end. And since you have to know when the client is calling or when something happens, we introduced Kafka to it. Kafka is a message broker, or in this case, we use it as a message broker. So we publish all the messages or information we get from the other side, from the SIP client, from carrier whatsoever. We condense it to a level which is necessary to handle the call, and then publish it to the other side on the retail interface to our developers. And so we get a very simple API, which is bind in this case to our setup. And you can make very simple calls and all the business stuff you have to handle anyway. So do accounting, do some other stuff like number settings, like whatever. You have to do it by yourself for sure. But when to put which legal header where and in which format is everything up to us. And nothing of this tech stuff is pushed to the API or pushed to our developers. And this is the idea behind that. And
Nice.
if I just simply to look to the call setup phase, so the Asterisk gives us an event, there's a new call, and then we create a bridge, we put the channel in the bridge, and then we tell our API there is a new call, with 50% of the way is already gone. So this is basically it.
So is it open source? Is there something people can use to play with, or is it an internal project?
This is partially open source, so a very small portion of that is open source, which is the ARI proxy. It's a small sidecar to the Asterisk, which connects to the ARI interface and publish everything to Kafka. And on the other hand, listen on Kafka messages and publish or use the ARI REST interface to answer channels, create channels, whatever, and then push back the REST response via Kafka to the originating part. But the retail controller, we call it, the middle part of it is it's an internal project. Yeah.
Okay, then maybe in the future you will be able to release more. Well,
yeah, I put a very small one where you can see how it's actually working on my private GitHub profile. We can add that in the comments, so you can have a look how we do it in very condensed form, where all the business logic is stripped out, because this is something we cannot provide to public, and it's an internal telephony interface, and it's not a public telephony interface. So therefore this stays closed, I think, but the basis of that is open source as well.
Well, we can still look at some architecture. So, given that we try to be an open source podcast, I always try to discuss technology choices, etc. Why Kafka? I mean, we use Kafka internally too, but there's other options. So, since this would be a very hot topic right now, everybody's picking their own type of queue, etc., and I'm always interested.
Yeah, we had a short, or we had not short. We had a prototype, and for the prototype, we discussed internally what kind of message queue or message system we want to have. And there is ARI proxy based on NATS or RabbitMQ out there already from Psychosystems, which is open source as well. At the end, we decided to go for Kafka because we already use Kafka in the company and we have a lot of knowledge in the company. You can do stuff with Kafka you can't do with RabbitMQ, for example. This message routing stuff, this database stuff, you can use in Kafka, you can do in RabbitMQ. So there are benefits we use from Kafka we haven't anywhere else. So this is why we use Kafka.
Oh, well, yeah. It's I find it's very resilient, but it's not super easy to understand at first. It is less friendly than other mechanisms, probably because it incorporates some. It's not just the protocol; it incorporates some of the features of a work queue, like it's closer to Sidekick in Rails or stuff like that. Well, speaking of Rails, this is a question I always ask: what's your stack internally? At least, well, what you can tell us.
Yeah, for sure. We are using for the open source SIP components. We use Commcon for a lot of stuff. We use RTP engine for sure. We use the Asterisk, and we use the Yate, which is a project from Nalro, which is open source as well for the SIP stuff. We use it for SS7 and mobile stuff as well, but this is closed source, so you have to pay fees to get to Yate for that. But anything we write for ourselves for the backend is mainly Java. So we are the retail controller is written in
Oh,
Java
Java.
17, for example. So good old Java. Then there are some glue codes in the middle. We use Go for it, or some helper scripts for example, are in Bash. So it's down to the basics at the end. But that's it. For database, we use Pacona, MySQL implementation,
Classic, yeah.
and Kafka. And we use Cassandra as a persistent backend for our retail stuff. But we struggle with that a little bit, and we are thinking if we get rid of Cassandra and use other stuff, because Cassandra is a lot of pain.
Yeah,
If you don't,
Cassandra is weird. It's a
wow,
very quirky type of piece of software for sure.
it is, yeah.
And there's a couple. Well, they're not fully open source, but there are a couple, well, even open source, a couple managed and whatnot alternatives, probably a little bit better.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a big fan of no SQL in general. I just read this learning no SQL.
Yeah, we used it because we need something which is master replication kind of thing, because we have two data centers which we need to replicate data between, and then we want to have something with which is reliant. So even if a node breaks, we don't want to have the entire stack fail, and therefore we use Cassandra, because on the paper it is able to do everything from what we need, but in reality it's more complex than we thought at the beginning.
For sure. Plus, NoSQL really is a word on its own now. I think it was much more popular a few years ago. I remember people suddenly deciding that Postgres will even not be used anymore, or stuff like that. Then you realize you sort of need to do queries once in a while.
Yeah.
It is that's the main thing. Also, I think and NoSQL, and I'm completely going out on a limb here, might make a comeback with all of the AI stuff that's going on right now, because you can store a lot of those interesting graphs in NoSQL in a better way than relational. So maybe who knows?
Yeah, there's a
it's
graph
complicated.
implementation, especially for storage of graphing, but we don't use it, so it would not be our sweet spot, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll do in telephony, so we need different stuff. Speaking of telephony, though, the other thing that Sipgate has done, which I have to say in Europe, there's not many people. Now, there are not very many companies who started out as a telephony company and became a mobile operator. I'm only aware of one or two others. Others started from larger initiatives from already established players. Like one of the largest MVNOs in Italy is actually just an off brand of an established carrier. They just have a different brand they use for lower cost in that case offers. So how was your journey with the mobile, getting to the mobile network? How does it start even?
So the journey was painful, I can tell you that.
Oh wow.
So in 2012, I think, our heads of the company thought it would be cool if we are a mobile network operator in Germany. And then we got a good deal with Telefonica. Back in the days, it was E+. And then they joined with O2, so they become Telefonica. We started there, but just to get into SS7 network for mobile doesn't mean you can do anything, because you have to get mobile numbers in Germany, and I think everywhere else in the world as well. So in Germany, we have this 0, 1 something range in the number format, which are explicitly for mobile devices. And it's not easy to become partner in this club of operators who own
Yeah,
these kind of numbers. So I cannot tell you the trick how we did it, but at the end we did it. So so we are registered member of this MNP club, so mobile network numbering club. I don't know how it.
Did you let the MLP's club president's children go after you got your number? Did you
I don't
free
know.
them? Have you kidnapped the children? Did you
I
free
can
them?
tell you that. I can tell you that.
Okay, okay.
so
I
so
said,
so it was an interesting journey. And if you catch me buy a beer, I will tell you, but not in the public here. But once
oh,
we had
that
this,
interesting. Wow. So it was that kind of interesting. Great.
so it's a cliffhanger. If you see me, take me by side. So no, but once we had these numbers, it was especially on just an technical thing, you know. And the problem was to learn all these abbreviation, to learn how SS7 is working, what the hell is an HLR, what's an MNC, what's an VLAR, something like that. All these abbreviations we had to learn, and some of them we had to implement them. And to implement an HLR is easy in comparison with an SMC, so the
Okay.
short message service center. The SMSC is a pain in the butt, I would say. And there we learned lots of stuff, especially how to retransmit short messages, how to queue short messages when you are able to bill the other side for or charge the other side for short message, some stuff like that. It is quite a matter, I think. On the other hand, we had to learn how to do SS7. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
far, we had only made SS7 contact with SCCP, also so calls, and we know what an IAM was or hang up reason, stuff like that, and how to map it to zip codes, something like that. We know already that, but we never get in contact with the higher levels of SS7. So we know how to handle calls, but we have no idea how to handle all this mobile stuff. And we got help again from the people of Yate, of Nalro. Back in the time, they implemented message routing for SS7, and now with them diameter stuff. And they helped us a lot to get started with that. And then we, built up an HLR and SMSC based on Java. It was a wildfly service back in the days. It is still now. It's a wildfly service, but an actual one. And then we got a manufacturer for SIM cards. It was not easy, and
Oh,
first we got some unbranded SIM cards, and we have to provide them by ourselves just for testing. And when we know how to do that, we have to scale it to a manufacturer level. And then we had
oh, yeah.
problems with the keys on the SIM card we provided, and then we made some mistakes, and we we had to throw away some thousands of SIM cards because we made a mistake in the coding of the tokens in there, something. So it was interesting. We learned a lot. I think it's not easy if you want to do or if you want to become a mobile operator in Germany. It's hard. Not because of the technical stuff, but because of the legal stuff. And you have to employ some good lawyers. We have some, and you have to be behind that, and you have to push all the time, all the parties involved. And this is the long run. We got lucky. We understood it now. And now some people said Zipgate working on voice over LTE. Telefonica has opened that up for MVNOs.
Yeah.
So we are on that as well, and new diameter stuff is coming in, and I don't know anything about that, so I can tell you that. But if you search, colleague of mine, Laura Geisen, made a talk on Commcon in 2019, I think,
Oh, yeah.
how
Right.
how we became an MVNO in Germany. So we can put that in the links as well. And she has some good stories as well.
So I have to ask, what does, so from a company perspective, what do you think being an MVNO gets you that just doing over the top doesn't? Is it revenue based, or are there things technical, like this is a technical podcast. This is what I like talking about. Are there things you cannot do unless you're an MVNO? I'm curious. It's a honest question. I don't know.
I think before I got to Sipgate, I worked with Comdasis. They were bought by Mitel, and they do FMC solutions on top. And the solutions we made back in the days are painfully complicated. So if you have an circuit switched fallback, I think on your OTT device or OTT app, whatever, you always have to make a lookup if my client is registered or not. Then I have to do a call on a number I have to provide, and then you have problems with calling number presentation, something like that. You always have these kinds of problems. I think for the user perspective, to have it all from one provider makes things more simple. So you get a SIM card from us, and we don't care if you have mobile numbers or just landline numbers or the other way around. Either way, your mobile phone and your desk phone ring to the same time, or you have a soft client on the PC or use a website to call. And we don't care what kind of device you are using. And you can use them in parallel as well. So you can use the mobile phone and the landline phone for the same time with the same calling party address. So if you call your mom, for example, it doesn't make any difference if you call from your mobile device or from your landline device. You always present your private number to your mom, just for example. And there are differences, especially if you have not well equipped areas with data plan and whatever. So you have just 2G or 3G, no data, whatever. You can use a SIM card, cell phone, whatever, but you cannot use an OTT device. I think there are the differences. I think they become less and less valid because we have everywhere enough coverage for LTE calls, whatever, and they are basically VoIP calls.
That's true.
So it makes no sense to do VoLTE call in comparison to a zip call on a client in an OTT device or OTT app. So I think it becomes less relevant, but so far it is relevant, and so we benefit from this situation.
So, as you know, as I said earlier, I'm a developer. I did a lot of applications and integrations over the years, and I was thinking, do you have an API or something I could take a look at and maybe play with? What can you do with it? Some kind of CPaaS. What's the structure? If there's anything for developers to do with Sipgate, essentially, so that we can send people to your website and come break things.
Yeah, sure. We have we call it sipgate-io, which is a push RP and real-time call manipulation service. So there's a WebSocket and REST API, and you can manipulate basically all calls coming in and out of your PBX, which is hosted by us. So, for example, if you place a call with your landline phone, you can intercept the call and reroute it anywhere else if you want. We have some good samples in the sample repo on GitHub. We can just read how this API is to be implemented. And then you can write basically your own PBX with that. I know from customers they implementing some ACD stuff with that and reroute all the calls depending on an IVR decision, on the calling party, on whatever, and doing stuff with that. So yeah, we have for sure.
Nice. Well, then I'll go take a look first because I think it's very interesting. Yeah, the future is probably, and I hope I'm right, but I think I've been proven right. The future is going to be companies like Sipgate who have an API, will allow you to interact with your own systems, etc. I feel like the older providers, like there's plenty that just buy a phone from them. They make millions. They have been struggling recently with figuring out some things. Well, look at 5G. Do you do anything with 5G? By the way,
not yet. I think 5G is mainly on the air connection thing. It's not that we have something special on the back end, but I don't know for sure. If I look at the paper of 5G, it's more or less LTE on steroids. So it's faster, it's bigger, it's longer, it's whatever. But the underlying idea stays the same, like in 4G LTE. Since I think we don't have to adapt a lot from 4G to 5G. But I don't really know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Some of the 5G stuff should be edge related, like the ability to deploy some pieces of software to the edge. I've done some work with that, and it's interesting. I think it's still a problem with access. Like even if carriers actually give you the ability to do that, it's still very hard to make it work. Like it took me a month to deploy a super simple hot word detection block and piece of software on the wavelength edge, just so I could, hear a voice and do something, say hello whenever someone says something word. And it's not at all intuitive. So that's probably where it starts.
Yeah, I don't know. In Germany, we have this problem of coverage. I don't know if any other country has the same problems, but I guess.
Yeah.
So there are these picocells, or the initial idea of 5G that you have your own 5G networks and open it up for anyone else roaming around. I think in Germany it's a little bit broken from the regulations basis. Bundesnetzagentur made not a good job in that to open up the frequencies you need to have an own cell on your business property. And therefore, I think the initial idea is broken in Germany. But hopefully, the big carriers open it up and provide frequencies customers could use to establish their own cells in 5G. Hopefully, we will get there. But for us, it's all future music. We don't do that at the moment.
Yeah, well, it is more of an application level thing to be sure, but it's I mean, I feel like the big carriers are still trying to make money out of 5G, so we'll see something coming out of that because Ericsson and Siemens sold them a lot of stuff.
Yeah. In Germany, we have this auction for frequencies, which is a nightmare. So the big companies are paying lots of money for frequency to get the legal right to use the frequencies for 5G. And no small carrier could afford to play the game. So they are out right from the start. And I think this is bad, especially for small or middle-sized companies like we are, since we have no chance to get part of it. And this is for the diversity of the market. It's a nightmare.
Oh yeah. So, it's going to be worse because the investments get exponentially bigger as the next generation comes in. And I don't know, at last few conferences I've been at, the feeling was that the manufacturers of the equipment are the ones making the money right now. Like Ericsson, Nokia, and Siemens, they're all super happy about it, but not much else.
Yeah, for the antennas and all the radio stuff, we need some big companies playing the game, I think. But for everything else, after that, you could use open source software for this. And therefore, there's no need to play with the big ones, except they just sell the entire package. So if you want to have the radio, you have to use the backend from them as well. So then open source is out again.
Yeah, that's that's the usual case. Well, I mean, we eventually will fix it at some point. So, are you planning to go to any conferences in the next months? Is there anything in your calendar?
I am, as well as some of my colleagues. We are planning to go, or we are going to Commcon in the UK. So if you want to meet me or my colleagues on the Commcon, I think there are some tickets left, and Dan Jenkins would like that you will come because it's a great conference. So Commcon is a residential conference. It's awesome to be there. This year I'm not giving a talk, but a colleague of mine is giving a talk, especially on the topic of retail and how we enable everyone in the company to use telephony without telephony knowledge. So you're interested in that? Yeah, catch the talk. I would say it's Maya
Nice,
Saskis. You can have a look on the profile of her on the Commcon page.
Very nice. Well, and this summer there's also Cluecon coming up in August in Chicago. So anybody wants to join us, we still have tickets too, and it's going to be great. I'll be there too. I unfortunately won't make it to Commcon because conflicting trips, but I hear it's a very fun conference. And,
it is,
I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to Cluecon this year being finally back on the original location. Well, not original, with different hotel, but on Chicago in the summer. And after these 3 years, which have been complicated for everyone, I'm happy to see all conferences in general come back to life, so to say.
Definitely. Some of my colleagues are at Commcon World in Berlin this year as well, and I think we are giving a talk again. I don't know the topic, but this is another conference which is back in person again, and it's great to hear the community is not dead.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, Jöran, thank you so much for joining us today, hearing about such a storied company and the journey to mobile and your retail project, etc. It was very interesting, and I hope to get to see more about the retail stuff, like make a little bit more open source. So we can learn more.
I start the conversation about it. Okay, that's all I can promise.
That's going to be fun. Well, again, Jöran, thanks you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And for the rest of the people, I will see you next week. Bye.